The Xbox and Bethesda Digital E3 conference kicked off pretty nicely, with Todd Howard showing us that Starfield does in fact exist, I guess. Showcasing a brand new teaser trailer, which didn't show us very much. It's about kind of what I expected from Bethesda Game Studios, and by that I mean until we see some proper gameplay I won't be sold on how it looks at all. It just looks a little weird to me. I don't really know why. I think it's probably the reputation of how Bethesda Game Studios games look and how they play, as they're not exactly known for keeping up with the times. But it would also be wrong of me to say that this teaser trailer looked awful. It just doesn't necessarily sell me right away. I feel kind of right in being cautious around Bethesda Game Studios, however, as they've released some shockers in the past. Some banging games, but some shockers as well. Though I hear Fallout 76 is apparently alright now, doesn't mean it didn't sting a lot of players when it released. My apprehensive thoughts aside, we've got a few pieces of information about Starfield that I thought were worth talking about to give me at least something to talk about. The elephant in the room, I suppose, being the release date that was given in the teaser trailer we got, which was the 11th of November 2022. So it's still more than a year out, and I wouldn't imagine we'll see proper gameplay being demonstrated to us until maybe E3 next year. But at least I suppose there's a release date there for a Bethesda Game Studios game, which means now it feels like The Elder Scrolls 6 is maybe less than 3 lifetimes away. I'm still expecting to see grey hairs before The Elder Scrolls 6, but it's nice to know that things feel like they're moving along, I guess. Starfield's quite a ways out in itself though, and honestly, considering Bethesda Game Studios' track record in the past, they spend years working on their games mostly one at a time, for the most part at the very least. I don't think there's a person on the planet who expected Starfield to release this year because it needs to be ready, and that's fair enough. Will it be though? That's the big question with Bethesda Game Studios, isn't it? I'll give you the answer no. But there we go, now we have a release date to mark, and that's okay. At least we know when we can expect Starfield to be a game that we can actually play. This is a new IP for Bethesda Game Studios as well. It'll be interesting to see how it differs from The Elder Scrolls or Fallout. They have vastly different primary themes. The Elder Scrolls is like a medieval fantasy. Fallout is a post-apocalyptic fantasy. This is a sci-fi space fantasy, I guess. It's the first new universe from Bethesda Game Studios in 25 years, so as long as it does define itself in some fashion, not necessarily in the setting, that's vastly different. However, would it play to the point where it's indistinguishable from Fallout in space? Maybe I'm being silly, but it's something that's worth at least thinking about. I really have no clue how I got onto that tangent, but sod it. Apparently Starfield will be the first game to use the Creation Engine 2, and apparently Bethesda Game Studios has spent years developing it to power the next generation of immersion and exploration. However, what does Creation Engine 2 actually mean? How will that be defined from what was the Creation Engine, which in itself is based on the Gamebryo engine that was initially released in 1997. The Creation Engine 1, shall we call it, debuted with Skyrim, and honestly, as great as Skyrim was, and to an extent if you like modding games still is, it was a touch outdated even then for its time, but it suited its purpose for Skyrim, and then with Fallout 4 it definitely felt outdated, and Fallout 76, fuck me. So the question is, will this Creation Engine 2 bring Bethesda Game Studios games up to speed properly? I mean, Todd Howard did say the reason why this game didn't come sooner is the limitations of technology. They wanted to wait for the right technology to suit what they were doing. They even said years ago that they didn't have the technology yet to do what they wanted to do with their upcoming games. I'm completely paraphrasing here, of course. I suppose we'll see what this next-gen vision is for Bethesda Game Studios with Starfield, and from that we'll get a better gauge as to what The Elder Scrolls 6 is working with this Creation Engine 2, when that inevitably comes around when we're all dead. In other news, Starfield is launching exclusively on Xbox and PC. I suppose it's good for Microsoft if Starfield does turn out to be a good game, but I don't think that's necessarily a given just yet, as I'm not sold on Starfield at all. But that's only my opinion, of course. I don't think it's a massive loss for Sony though, as Bethesda Game Studios titles have never run particularly amazingly on PlayStations. In fact, they've never run particularly amazingly on console at all, or particularly amazingly at all, for that matter. At least not with a bit of help from these guys. Maybe the Creation Engine 2 will turn that around? We can only hope, but I'm not an optimist. I mean, I'd like to be, and I respect optimists, but I'm coming across as a bit of a sour bellend today, aren't I? The other big piece of news is Starfield is coming to Game Pass on day one. Now, Xbox's Game Pass is looking more and more like a really good deal the longer it goes on with all these games being added to it, especially with day one titles like this. The longevity of Game Pass as a sustainable business model aside, it seems like a pretty good deal at the present moment for the consumer, not having to splash $60, $70/pounds for every single new release, especially when it comes to games you're not sure about. But I understand that some people aren't too keen on subscription models and really quite enjoy having that physical copy of a game. Since I don't belong to that crowd, I don't really care about that so much. Now, I've only owned an Xbox Series S for a short period of time, but for me the Game Pass has been really useful for old games, which I've been enjoying playing, so it would be nice to have some new ones in there too. But with Starfield being day one on Game Pass, that can only be good for Game Pass, even if Starfield isn't the best game of all time. But now I'm officially chatting out my arse, so we're gonna move on. Todd Howard also did an interview for The Telegraph where he confirmed that Starfield is very much a next-gen game which will only be playable on high-end PCs and the newer Xbox Series X and S consoles. Now, it would be nice to get more games that can showcase what these next-gen consoles can do, in this case the Xbox Series X and S, but is a Bethesda Game Studios game gonna really do that? Will it really be pushing the bar of the next generation, or will it be pushing the bar on how much the next generation consoles can tolerate when it comes to technical errors? I feel like my skepticism is justified here, but maybe I'm wrong. In another article for The Telegraph published at the exact same time as the other one, what's the point? Howard gave us a bit more information with regards to what we can expect, stating that it's set about 300 plus years in our own future, and Constellation is like this last group of space explorers, like a NASA meets Indiana Jones meets the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and that there are a lot of factions in the game, but the Constellation is the main one you'll become a part of, and it's sort of like Skyrim in terms of the structure of the game itself, where you're going to be and who you want to be, and then there's the different factions that you can join and really carve your own path. I'll link these articles in the description. There's lots of detail in there that I think is pretty interesting, but there's nothing really in there that I necessarily want to talk about, though the interviewer did ask about the ladder in the trailer, asking if we'll be able to climb ladders in the game, and apparently we can't look too much into that as it's a ladder to get you in and out of the spaceship, and that's about it. Todd Howard goes on to say that exciting video game features are a pain in the arse. It's all fun and games, but that might as well be Bethesda Game Studios' motto at this point. It's definitely not an encouraging thing to read. I wouldn't refer to climbing ladders as an exciting video game feature either. I won't take it one way or another for now, it's just a joke in an interview, but there you go. I'm not sold on Starfield just yet. I feel like I'm going to need a lot of convincing, and I think it's all well and good having this teaser and Todd Howard doing interviews and things like that, but I'd imagine we're waiting at least a good few months or maybe even to next E3 to see some proper gameplay and see how this game actually runs, and of course how it plays, and to properly grasp what's trying to be achieved here. Since we have that release date of the 11th of November 2022, it'll probably be before then that we find out some stuff, obviously, otherwise I'll be really concerned. But please do feel free to let me know what you think about Starfield based on what we now know. Like I said, I'm going to refrain from getting excited. I'm still very cautious, especially after Fallout 76. I don't care if people think it's good now or whatever, it's just I remember the game that came out in 2018 and I don't want to see a repeat of that. But thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you've enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff. That would be super fantastic. And with any luck, I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, take care and goodbye.